Welcome, scientists. It's Mr. Gopal here, and today I'm actually really excited about this particular lesson because this is where we study the vaccine. Going through the unit in the Living Environment Regents curriculum on the immune system, we get to know this incredible part of our body, this internal body system that is responsible for keeping us safe and healthy. So the purpose of the lesson is to figure out how vaccines work, what they are, and how they can impact public health. And so I'm going to take you through the broad strokes of the videos, which are very detailed and maybe at certain points even a little bit beyond the scope of the course, but nonetheless very interesting and totally understandable. They're done very well. But I just want to summarize the essential points and how you should maybe think about the idea of a vaccine and why it's valuable. There's a little bit of controversy in society about vaccines, and so we should discuss the idea that the scientific community has almost uniform agreement that a vaccine is a very good way to keep the population safe. However, there are strains, kind of subcultures, marginalized cultures, where people feel that vaccines are dangerous. Now, when it comes to the lesson objective, we want to think about active and passive immunity and a specific immune response and how we hold on to that over long periods of time. And so the basic idea behind a vaccine, and there are multiple forms, they discuss live attenuated vaccines and subunit vaccines in this lesson and in the video. The basic difference with each of these, or the principles they're working on, is that you're receiving a version of the disease to practice on. The live attenuated vaccine basically comes down to receiving a weakened version of a certain disease. So people get the flu vaccine every year. Now everybody's getting vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccines. And both of these have weakened versions of those particular diseases. On the other hand, sometimes there's a thing called a subunit vaccine, which contains only part of the genetic makeup of a certain disease. Sorry, I almost said vaccine, of a certain disease. And so the difference there is that one part itself will not harm you, it won't get you sick full on, but again, it will give your body the chance to practice. Now, the difference here is that we need something called an adjuvant that's in the subunit vaccine as well, in addition to this subunit part of the disease. So you get the subunit part, you have the adjuvant. The adjuvant triggers your immune system to create what we call killer T cells, which are crucial for the process. The difference in probably the subsequent, greater popularity of the live attenuated vaccine is that it triggers a longer memory response. So here's how it goes. In the live attenuated vaccine, you receive a weakened version of a certain strain of disease, and your body gets to practice and creates killer T cells. But not only does it practice and prepare you, should you catch the real thing, but it creates memory cells so that if you caught the real thing, say, far down the line, you would still be safe, all right? And so the body has a long memory of infectious diseases, and you can be kept safe by vaccines for half a year to a year usually before you need another one. So people usually get the flu vaccine once a year. Now, the other interesting thing about this is to examine historical cases where certain vaccines really made breakthroughs in public health. And so we're looking at a graph of polio, polio cases from 1950 into the modern age, into 2001. And so obviously you can see in 1950, we had an alarming amount, of cases. But very quickly, once we had the inactivated vaccine and then the live oral vaccine, we were able to eradicate this particular disease. And that's what's shown by the strong downward spikes in the amount of cases. And now the same thing is going on with the flu virus. Originally in the 30s, the flu virus was extremely dangerous. And so it may not seem like a lot, but obviously that spike up in the 30s, above 40 cases per 100,000. That is a pretty alarming stat for how many people would die of that. And we see that it was brought well down by the mid 20th century, again, because of this vaccine. So we figured out, biologists basically figured out a way to train our body to anticipate and create immune defense should we catch the real thing. Now, we should also talk about acquired immunity and then the two kinds of it. So acquired immunity is immunity that you're going to develop through your life experience and the things that you're exposed to. So you don't always necessarily have to take a vaccine in order to be prepared, to prepare your body. Sometimes you catch the real thing and you fight it off. And then the process of catching an actual disease, a virus specifically, and fighting it off will create the antibodies in your immune system. And this has happened for some people with COVID-19. Now, active immunity is the version of this that happens when you develop immunity after exposure to a pathogen. And so passive immunity is when you get it through somebody else. So a very common example is when babies drink the breast milk of their mothers, they might get antibodies through that, okay? And then also during the COVID-19 era, we've had periods where COVID survivors have donated their blood because it's filled with the antibodies. And these are very valuable for other people who have not caught COVID yet. And so passive immunity just means that it's not your body that's creating the immunity, you're acquiring it through somebody else. And so I hope all of this has managed to clarify the broad strokes of this, things that you want to bear in mind. Vaccines are essential to modern public health, and they've ensured that we've been able to exist in a disease-rich world. That's kind of a strange thing to say, but there are many new viruses that come out all the time, but because we have a long-standing now tradition in the scientific community of developing excellent vaccines, we've been able to survive and prosper for the most part. COVID-19 is obviously probably the worst public health scare that we've had in the modern era. And now already we've developed several different vaccines to address it. So you want to take away a very deep appreciation for the vaccine, in addition to an understanding of how to read these graphs and understand the way in which your immune system develops defense. All right. And so we have natural ways of developing killer T cells and a great immune system, but the scientific community has progressed to such an extent that we can design vaccines that will train our body literally to prevent disease. I hope this has been helpful to you. Thank you very much, and I will see you soon.